Yes, definitely. And you know what that means?
Yeah, it's time to. Sorry, yeah, I got a little bit ahead of myself. Now it's time for the Blitz Lines. That's what that music means. And we were talking about coaching changes, and we will get to those in a minute. But there was a coaching change today, actually,
Yes.
an announcement made just this afternoon, about a week before the season starts.
About around a little after 4 o'clock. This headline came from the Fort Myers News Press here, Marty. And Dan DeLuca at the Fort Myers News Press is reporting that ex-Florida quarterback Tyler Murphy will be the new head coach at Cape Coral High School. Yes, that Tyler Murphy who played for the Florida Gators. And one of his assistants who was actually a part of the squad, Jalen Watkins.
Yeah, there's another one, another former Gator. And Tyler Murphy moved on from Florida and later played up at BC. But yeah, he an interesting career he had with the Gators, and now he's got his first head coaching job down there at Cape Coral, there in Lee County and Fort Myers area. So that'll be interesting to see. Again, kind of a late to be him and a head coach, but you know.
Well, the issue was that apparently Isaiah Carvin, who was appointed to be the head coach during the offseason, he is no longer with the school district, and apparently, I guess it says the district investigated an undisclosed complaint against him, but and been suspended from his position since basically the end of spring football. So got spring football in, and that was it there for Cape Coral, and now Tyler Murphy is taking over as the head coach here, and it's really interesting. Tyler Murphy, only 32 years old, so
yeah, and not from Florida, actually from Connecticut. That's where he came from when he played for Florida and played for the Gators. He was on the Steelers for a season, 2015, on the practice squad of the Dolphins, and a little short NFL career there. But again, he played for 4 years with Florida, including a red shirt, and then his final year was at BC. So that's a name you should know. God, that was 10 years ago now. It's hard to believe.
It's crazy. I mean, it's been a hot minute since I heard that name. And Jalen Watkins, I don't know, it's been a hot minute since I've heard that name. Will Muschamp, I think, was the head coach at that stretch, I think, for those guys.
Absolutely. It was Will Muschamp. You're right. As the quarterback carousel happened during that period for the Florida Gators. And we'll see if that changes a bit this year for them. But, yeah, that right there already, a coaching change being announced today, or new coach being announced. And that'll lead us to kind of talking about the coaching changes during the offseason. And
yeah, absolutely. And there's been some interesting ones, here, especially that was really interesting there in terms of that particular coaching change there, that all of a sudden now it's like, hey, it just showed up today here. So, I mean, talking about some of these changes here that are happening around the state, I'm trying to pull it up here real quick because I had, I actually will say this, a couple, going down over to Wharton, I will tell you that's been a coaching change there, and I think that bringing some Central Florida gusto into the Tampa Bay area could really help with Abner Smith. He comes over from the Apopka area, so he's coming over from there, and we'll talk to Bob Putnam about some of the coaching changes in that region.
We just talked about this yesterday, but James Wilder Jr., who was about to start his first season as head coach at Chamberlain, stepped down, so he's not even going to start his first season.
And it's interesting, and I'm interested to talk to Bob about that later here, and and we'll hear the interview, because honestly, that stunned me. It's like you start practice, 3 days later you're not the head coach anymore, and you just step down, and it's like and we talked to him at the media day a couple weeks ago, and that
he was looking forward to it. Seemed pretty excited, ready to go. He played at Chamberlain, and then later transferred to Plant, but played there, of course, at the end of his career, then at Florida State. But yeah, I don't know. Interesting story there. Anytime there's a coaching change when practice starts right before the season, it's kind of odd to me. It's something obviously personal or something was going on there, probably.
No, absolutely. And honestly, looking at some of these other coaching changes that we had, Kurt Bradley going from Braden River over to Southeast, going over to a crosstown rival there. That'll be interesting to see. I mean, of course, Kurt Bradley put Braden River on the map there and all that. And honestly, I think now he's going to try to get the Southeast program, which, traditionally Southeast, if you look back into historically, hey, who are some names that we know, Marty, that you grew up on? Because
Peter Warwick?
Yes.
Yeah, that's one I can think of.
The Braden's and Southeast Seminoles, and
it's either them or Manatee, and Manatee's been Southeast has had a little bit of a down period, but Manatee's obviously been up there. But yeah, that's the Southeast. They were in the 90s. That program was pretty hot.
Yes, absolutely.
So,
and looking at another one, Tampa Catholic. How about this? Mike Gregory returning for a second stint, and we talked to him at the Buccaneers High School Football Media Day as well. Mike Gregory is back as well as the head coach. Had his first stint there in the mid 2010s there, and now he's back after going through some college coaching and a little bit of IMG.
You see a lot of this too, more and more about coaches coming back to their jobs before second stint. We got a coach here in this area where we live in North Central Florida that's on his third stint as a head coach. So it's funny, these coaches, they go away and then for reasons maybe they're same thing at View Holds High this year. Coach Mark Whittemore, and that's another one we'll talk about North Florida. But these guys take a year off or so, and they decide they miss it. They want to come back, and that's what we're seeing a lot more with these high school coaches too. But
no, absolutely, and and really, honestly, if we look at the number of coaching changes that have taken place, some of the bigger ones are actually not in the Gulf Coast region, going from around the Tampa Bay area down to Naples. Some of them are more along North Florida and South Florida, and which we will get to tomorrow night on this North Florida and South Florida Blitz shows.
That's tomorrow. That's right.
Yes,
we'll get to that then.
I'm looking at it real quick. I mean, Lemon Bay had a coaching change. Lemon Bay has actually been a program that has actually has shown improvements over the last few years. Actually, has been winning anywhere from 7 to 10 games a year here. And Jason Mincing comes down from out of state. He's going to be the head coach now this year for the Manta Rays. Manta Rays, one of the unique mascots in the state.
Manta Rays, right? Not to be confused with the Devil Rays or the Rays, but the Manta Rays. Yes. Well, I guess as we move on, we can talk about what a year it was last year, really, for the Gulf Coast. Look at that. All those teams won state titles a year ago, including Shorecrest Prep. 8-man SSAA state championship. But Berkeley Prep, their first state title a year ago. They knocked off a nationally ranked Miami Norland team, Cardinal Mooney, winning their first in 40 years or more as they defeated Trinity Catholic. And
I think it was like 42 years, I want to say.
And then Lakeland, nothing new for them. They won their second state title in a row in a game that was like a basketball game. They beat Venice 60-48. The second year in a row they've knocked off Venice for the state title. Lakeland, can they get a three-peat?
Yes, and honestly, and it also showed that Lakeland can win without Bill Castle being on the sideline. So there you go.
Right. So
that proved everything last year. And honestly, with Lakeland, here's the biggest thing. Guess what? St. Thomas Aquinas and Lakeland are back in the same classification. We've seen epic showdowns, but there's Mainland sitting there lurking around. We talked about this on the last show, the Central Florida Blitz. The path is not as clear for Lakeland to go win state championship and repeat this year. So again, hey, do we potentially get a rematch of St. Thomas Aquinas and Lakeland? If you look in the history books, those two teams, when they meet on the state for the field for a state championship game, they've been epic battles.
Yeah,
epic battle after epic battle, or you do like Lakeland did in, I think, 2018, and then you just go roll over St. Thomas Aquinas.
Well, I mean that's the way it was for a while. Lakeland had their number. I mean, if you remember 2010, that era to 2015 or so, Lakeland, every time they played Aquinas, they beat them. Then it switched a little bit. Aquinas, came back and was able to kind of beat Lakeland for a few years, but. One thing that Aquinas hasn't had to do lately is play Lakeland, which is why they've been able to win 5 straight state titles, which is a school record. But we'll talk about that again in South Florida.
By the way, real quick, I want to bring this comment up here. Coach G, he did. I thank you very much for pointing that out. George Selvey, yes. Sumner did have that coaching change. So Coach G there on X sending us that message. And yes, Sumner 11-2 last year and made it to the third round. So definitely appreciate that right there as we roll along here.
Yes. The other team there, as we said, Shorecrest Prep, and Berkeley Prep. What a year for them last year. They'd been close. They were able to get their first state title.
Dom Sayo finally gets over the hump. I mean, he had a
long time coach there.
If you go back and look at 1992 when he coached Tampa Jesuit and they got to the state championship, and a team right just over the county line named Pasco decided, hey, we're gonna take this state. See you later.
Yeah, it shows you how hard it is to win that. But Berkeley Prep. We saw that game in Tallahassee. They played a perfect game to beat Norland. They had to because that Norland team was really talented, but Berkeley Prep did exactly what they needed to do to win that game.
Masterclass in coaching by Don Sayo.
Yeah, and that's why he's a veteran coach. But all right, and again, that's more stuff we can talk to Bob Putnam about in a few moments about Berkeley Prep and Cardinal Mooney and all those teams. But Venice, does Venice have a clearer path to a state championship in 2024? Well, if Lakeland's not there, you got to think so.
Well,
and they're not.
And they're not. But Venice does have another team sitting there in their way, and that's in Class 7A, and that is the defending state champion in Columbus.
Columbus, 2-time defending state champion, exactly, from Miami. Yeah, so you're right. That'll be a challenge for Venice. Venice, the last 2 years, losing to Lakeland for the state title. Both games were really close, and again, last year's game was more of became a basketball game, a basketball score after a while. But Yeah, I mean, Venice, we know John Peacock's going to have that team ready to go. They're always talented.
No, absolutely, and I think we could kind of throw a couple other teams in here, maybe or actually one team I think that may have a much clearer path to getting to the state championship game. I didn't put in here on the Blitz lines, but that's Tampa Plant because they're in 6A, and well, there's no defending state champion sitting in that classification, so somebody's winning a state championship this year that didn't win it last year.
Yeah, that's true, and they're a little clearer road there. Another team in this area to Buchholz, who's been close, and
we'll talk about that tomorrow night.
But you're right, Venice. They've seen Venice in the playoffs a few times, and yeah, that should be making them a little bit closer. But no, nothing is ever sure. You got to go out and win those games. That's why they play the games, as they always say. But
no, that's right. They do say that, and honestly, and that leads us to our final question here on the Blitz lines. Can a team in Lee or Pinellas counties finally win a state championship? I know, okay, you're going to say, okay, Shorecrest Prep 8-man team. Well, we're talking FHA state championship here, which no team in Lee or Pinellas County has actually done.
That's hard to believe. It really is. So as big as those counties are, and as many schools as are,
and there's a reason why I put them in here on the Blitz lines, because they're the two of the largest metropolitan areas that are part of this region here on the Gulf Coast Blitz, where they haven't won a state championship. It's really, really crazy to think that a state championship has not been won by a team of public school or private school caliber that's in the FHA in those counties.
Right, because Clearwater Central Catholic's been there the last few years, but of course they ran into probably the best team in Florida, Chaminade Madonna, last couple of years. Last year's game was a mismatch, but Clearwater Central Catholic, they've been in that championship game a few times and haven't been able to win it quite yet, but Lee County, it's been a little while since the Lee County team played for state title. I believe we'll go back to Bishop Verot in the 90s. So, yeah, it's
Dunbar was knocking on the door twice the past couple years and couldn't break the code. So
that's right. So we'll see if this year, 2024, that'll change as well. It seems like Pinellas County is getting a little closer to that, but
no, absolutely.
So,
and we got a comment from Coach G here about Sumner having the hardest schedule in Hillsborough County. Bartram Trail, Jesuit, Lakeland, Armwood, Plant, and Plant City, just to name a few. Yes, and I will be interested and curious to see what the computer ranking throws out here on Sumner here in terms of what the power rating is going to be to start the season and what the forecast is going to be to open the season.
Brutal, that schedule. I mean, that is. And you're right, that is the hardest. That's got to be the hardest schedule in Hillsborough County. So we'll see how Sumner is able to respond to that with a new coach. Well,